Security agencies in Australia are growing increasingly concerned at the number of young Muslim zealots heading to Iraq and Syria to join a holy war. Authorities believe at least 60 Australians are currently fighting with jihadi groups in those conflicts. Some are believed to have been at Al-Qaeda-affiliated training camps. Dozens more have returned home, and authorities are concerned some may take up the fight here. Today, the Islamist group ISIS declared it has established a new Islamic State or caliphate across the Iraq-Syria border, ushering in a new era of international jihad. A 7:30 investigation has revealed one former Australian resident is now playing a key role in the uprising, while authorities suspect funds from Australia are being funnelled to militant groups involved in the conflicts. Dylan Welch and Sean Rubenstein Dunlop prepared this report.
In the crucible of Syria and Iraq, the West's new jihadists are being forged. These men are training for war at a militant camp in eastern Syria. It's one of several training camps that have sprung up since last year. Authorities believe some of the men at these camps are Australians, training for a jihad in the Middle East and at home.
I think it's the greatest security threat to Australia this century. What we have is a number of Australians who are going over to conflict areas to fight. They're getting trained in how to use explosives and how to use guns and ammunition. And if they come back to Australia, they're going to come back with a reinforced mindset.
In wherever it may be, Europe, in Australia, in America, the reasons for coming to jihad, the reasons are plenty.
Look at the dhul, the disgrace this ummah is going through. Look and see and wake up.
The two Australian men in this video are among about 60 Australians that security agencies say are fighting with Jabhat al-Nusra and ISIS, the two most radical militant groups in Syria. Both are offshoots of Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda.
All my brothers in Australia, I don't see myself better than any of you. And alhamdulillah, it's only that Allah has been Kareem on me and He's bringing me here to this country. So this is the message I wanna send to you. A message that, inshallah, from a Muslim brother's heart to another brother's heart.
Zakaria Rad, who was killed in fighting soon after this video was made, was one of several Australians involved in Syria and Iraq who have direct links with Australia's biggest terrorism case, Operation Pendennis, in which 22 men were charged with plotting to bomb targets in Sydney and Melbourne. Two of Rad's relatives were convicted in that case. Also convicted in Operation Pendennis was Khalid Sharoof, a Sydney man who did 4 years in jail. He's now in Iraq, where he posted photos on Facebook posing next to mutilated corpses.
Give it up for Mohammed Sugar Al-Omar.
An associate of Sharoof, Sydney boxer Mohammed Al-Omar, is also in Iraq. His uncle is serving 21 years in jail over the Pendennis plots. El-Omar's brother was charged in Lebanon with militant activity, but the charges were dropped.
You've got these people that have combat experience and that are forming or potentially forming cells that aren't being groomed and shaped and disciplined in the same
Leah
way.
Farrall was a terrorism analyst with the Federal Police and is now an authority on Al-Qaeda.
Very few young men go to train in order to become a terrorist, to go and blow a bomb up somewhere in a CBD. They go precisely for what's happening in Syria or in other places, and it's there that they get radicalised, or in wanting to be there that they get radicalised.
The worsening situation in Iraq and Syria, and the high number of Australians now fighting with radical jihadi groups, has left parts of the Australian community concerned. This protest was held in southwestern Sydney by the Iraqi community. And do you have family still there?
All the brothers, family, mom, sisters, all the family. They can't go anywhere. Very dangerous. The life very dangerous now.
Qasim Basha is from northern Iraq. Most of his family were trapped near the northern city of Mosul when ISIS attacked, and he has not heard from them in a week. The next day, local supporters of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad gathered in southern Sydney to rail against the Sunni rebellion.
I've seen their crimes in Syria. They are slaughtering, they're committing suicide bombing, they're burning churches, they're burning mosques. We are different to them in Syria. Aren't we different to them in Australia? These people are experienced, they've trained, they will conduct terrorism in Australia. Why would Australia accept this?
Here you see the Bab al-Hawa border crossing that leads into Syria.
Australian authorities are not just concerned about violence. They're also watching young men who have travelled to Syria to raise funds for humanitarian work.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. My name is Mohammed and I'm in the Idlib region of Syria.
According to his Facebook page, Sydney man Mohammed Zubi has been delivering aid to war-ravaged towns across northwestern Syria.
We've already handed out over 300 portions. Boxes start off with 2 packs of dates, a box of tea, 2 packs of macaroni.
Zubi has uploaded a series of video diaries.
I'm here in a large crater of a barrel bomb. This should give you an example of the size of the explosives used in Syria. The radius of this bomb is about 20 metres, the crater is about 20 metres, and the depth is about 6 metres.
Since travelling to Syria 15 months ago, he's raised over $40,000 from Australia.
Our intention is to make it completely free, but sadly we can't do that at the moment because of lack of funding. This is why we need your help. Donation details will be added. We accept donations in Western Union, direct bank transfer.
While saying he was only involved in humanitarian work, in a series of posts, Zubi made clear his support for ISIS. In one, he discusses the recent and bloody murder of British soldier Lee Rigby, who was stabbed and hacked to death on a London street by Islamic fanatics in May last year.
The death of Lee Rigby wasn't a murder. It was his punishment for his crimes against Islam. If the governments won't hold their criminal soldiers responsible for the atrocities caused in our countries, the Muslims will.
Last month, the Australian government shut down Zubi's Commonwealth Bank fundraising account. The Attorney-General's Department declined to reveal why Zubi's account was shut down and said in a statement,
"It is illegal for any Australian citizen to provide support, including financial, to an organisation listed as a terrorist organisation. The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant and Jabhat al-Nusra are both listed terrorist organisations under the Criminal Code Act."
Look,
In a Skype interview with the ABC, Zubi denied providing support to militants.
But we've never once shown that we fund anything other than charity. Look, funding for Jihad and so on and so forth, it doesn't come in amounts of $100, $20, $50 and so on. It comes in amounts of 100,000, 50,000, 200,000. We're on such a small scale that even if we were to do something like that, we wouldn't make any difference.
Australia's link to the conflict date back to the Lebanese civil war of the 80s and 90s, when tens of thousands of Lebanese fled to Australia, but maintained strong connections to their homeland. The wars in Lebanon and now Syria have become a magnet for some young Australian Muslim radicals.
They don't want to act in Australia because it's too dangerous. They have made their lives in Australia. They don't want to have any problems in Australia. So what they decided to do, well, to exploit the globalization. They decided that they could also defend the Sunni, according to them, defend their faith through those transnational networks in the 90s, especially in Tripoli, where you had a very dire situation.
Paris-based academic Bernard Rougier has spent 6 years researching militant networks in the region. There are many connections to Australia. He says one former Australian resident is now a central player in the Syrian conflict. His name is Hussam Sabah. He's pictured here at a protest in Tripoli only days ago.
Hussam Sabah was born in Tripoli. Hussam Sabah was 16, 17 when he left Tripoli in 1989, when once again the Syrian troops invaded Tripoli. He went to Australia.
Sabah and his family moved to Sydney southwest. He worked in construction and worshipped at the Lakemba Mosque. Sabah returned to Lebanon around 2005.
He was radicalized before as a youngster, and then he got back to Tripoli, but he didn't, of course, he didn't lose all the networks that he made in Australia. So you have this transnational network.
Today, Sabah commands a well-armed militia of several hundred fighters in Tripoli. He's been accused in the Lebanese media of being a member of Al-Qaeda and of fighting with the Al-Qaeda offshoot, Jabhat al-Nusra. Bernard Rougier says Sabah maintains strong links with Australia.
From Tripoli, everybody who knew him or who was close to him said there is a good relationship with the Sheikh Isa.
The Australian sheikh he's referring to, seen here on the left, is Zuhair Issa, a preacher at Al-Azhar Mosque in Sydney's southwest. Issa has been in Australia since leaving Lebanon in 2005. His brother co-owns an Islamic bookstore and a youth centre with a history of advocating an extreme brand of Islam. In 2007, both Sabah and Issa were charged in Lebanon with terrorism-related offences. Lebanese court documents obtained by 730 show that Issa and Sabah were accused of forming a militant group that was funded by Al-Qaeda. Sabah was in charge of military operations, arms and explosives. The documents say Issa and Sabah were leading figures in the group of jihadist fanatics which swore allegiance to Al-Qaeda. More recently, Bernard Rougier and Australian authorities believe Zuhair Issa has sent money from Australia to Sabah.
Zuhair Issa, who is giving money, funds, resources to those people that he knows and so on. So you have, you know, one of the reasons why there is a fragmentation of Sunni politics in that part of the Middle East is very much the result of those transnational networks and young guy able to set up a militia or able to set up an armed group through their transnational connections, thanks to their connection in Australia or to Denmark and to other parts.
730 spoke to Zuhair Issa at his Sydney mosque. He declined to appear on camera, but said neither he nor his family had provided money or support to Sabah. He acknowledged he'd been charged in 2005 and 2007, but said that he had since been cleared of all charges and that both cases were the result of the involvement of the powerful Shia group Hezbollah.
The million-dollar question with all of this is, what are these boys or men that have gone off to fight and join these groups, what are they going to do? Did they go to fight and are they going to come home and essentially behave themselves, or are they going to come home and want to carry something out? Are they going to come home and want to continue the fight?
While overseas money continues to fund militants in Syria, bomb-making classes such as this one will continue to exist. And Australian security agencies will remain alert for potentially catastrophic violence.